Okay, this meeting of the Facilities and Operations Subcommittee has been called to order today, Wednesday, December 4th, 2024. Deb, can I please get a roll?
Mr. Agia?
Here.
Mr. Corey?
Here.
Ms. Larrabee?
Here. Salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Open meeting law. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledgeable and permissible. Is there any citizens input, Deb?
There is not.
Thank you. Discussion one, we'll move on to 3.1, discussion and vote to refer the HVAC request and qualification. Kenny, please.
Sure. So before you have the draft that was put together with the city and facilities and operations here, and all the highlighted items are dates, basically a moving target. I want to be sure that everyone's comfortable with the document. It's pretty comprehensive. It's going to give us the information that we need to move forward. Basically, it's a district-wide document, and it incorporates some engineering piece and the conversation during the negotiations of the contract for whoever is the winning bidder. Will also include envelope work, making sure that we don't have other issues that are contributing to any of our HVAC woes in the district. So there, as I said, it's a draft. There's a lot here, a lot of information. But anything that's highlighted throughout the document is, I would say, would be fluid until we know for sure that
Which are mostly dates.
Yeah.
Those are most of
that the subcommittee's happy with, and also that the full
Yep.
committee wants to vote to approve this. So,
Okay, any questions, comments?
I do.
Tommy, thank you.
So Ken, this is obviously looking like it's a long-term move, right?
so this is a full, yes,
Yeah.
district-wide study is going to be pretty in-depth. So they'll be crawling around on the roofs. They're going to check to what work is needed, but they're also going to check to see what work has already been done. So we're hoping to have items like upgrades were done on such and such a time based on the equipment, serial numbers, things like, it's going to be very in-depth. And what's going to happen is some of the work at the end of all of this stuff, or I would say a list of both recommendations and also consideration to if there is any PM work that they feel needs to be, let's say if we're doing something once a year, they may say this part should be done twice a year, 3 times a year. That work, that will also show up in the document that they're going to produce. It'll be a document that we can work off of.
Will the documents be for each individual facility?
It will be. So they'll spell out all of the equipment in each facility, and then they'll spell out what work needs to be done, what work has already been done.
So it's sort of like a map of each facility, where we've been, what we've done, and where we need to go to.
Right.
And that's the long-term
It's
projection.
long-term projection. They'll also, at our request, put together a capital plan that goes along with that. So we're telling you to do X, Y, and Z. This is the cost to do X, Y, and Z. With an escalator as to when we do it. We know that right now the driver of most of the projects is about a 5% escalator from year to year. So if we plan on doing a new roof, for instance, if there's a roof that is giving us an issue, they're going to say that if you do it this year, it's X amount of dollars. Continue to, extrapolate that out over the amount of years before you do the roof. and they'll highlight by necessity, so to speak. So
I'm speaking out of the turbulence that we suffered through all summer with the
Yes.
mold issues at
Yes.
the Laterno, at the Green. I worked at the Green. I remember when the HVAC systems weren't really working at peak performance, even when I was there over 10 years ago. This is a good idea to keep ahead of things, as long as it's followed through. And who do these contractors answer to?
So they
Your
answer-
department,
they
or
answer to us and the city. So
do they answer
basically,
to the school committee as well?
oh yeah, absolutely. Well, the school committee's got to approve the document.
Everything they do?
Absolutely.
So if something goes awry, they answer to us.
Right.
As far as the issues that we went through last summer, are they going to be able to help us work in a proactive sense to try to head off any future mold issues because of the debilitating effects it could have on our staff and our students?
What we're looking for is exactly that. Okay, I need to know what's wrong, and if it's something that we're doing wrong, I need to know that. You know, if it's something
Yeah.
we're not doing, or if it's something we're doing in a way that we could do better, that's what we want out of this report. But we also need to know what kind of dollar value we're putting on all of this work,
Yeah.
so that we can plan with the city. You know, the city's asking us, actually, we have it due on the 15th of this month, a capital improvement plan of what we anticipate for the next 5 years, and most of it is work that we've already tried to plan, and we just keep pushing it out, you know, financially, where it's gonna be. But part of their work will be to take a look at that capital improvement plan and see if our priorities are where they need to be.
Good.
And make adjustments moving forward from there.
Are we going to retain the services of that mold consultant, the Dr. Bill?
So we have, Terrell, Mr. Terrell?
Yes.
So I haven't talked to Mr. Terrell in quite some time. I know he was traveling. And every time I've reached him, that's the message I got, that he was away. Mr. Terrell had mentioned to us, not right at the beginning, but that he was slowly gonna retire.
Yes.
He's not gonna walk away from the company, but he's gonna slowly retire, and that he would work, you know, do work for us when we needed it. We obviously have other consultants that we work with, other companies to do this work. So what we're hoping to do is to retain Mr. Terrell to do some items that we would like him to do. He has a very good handle on preventive maintenance and the certain things that we need to target in preventive maintenance. So with that being said, I would like to continue working with him. When he comes back, you know, when he's available, we would like to have a conversation with him on what that piece of the work would cost us.
One last question. So the overall goal, it seems to me, of this is to create some type of a capital improvement plan on our facilities. Would that help us to spend our money more efficiently?
Absolutely. What we need to do is be proactive. And unfortunately, last year put us in a very reactive mode, and that's not where we need to be. Reactive in making repairs makes the repair, but it's that one, it's in the moment.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is try and head off some of the things. And a lot of it is the fact that up until the last, let's say 4 years, the dollars have not been necessarily invested in the buildings. We started investing heavily when money came around, and obviously with some different funding here and there, but now that we're built, you know, that MSBA is not going to be a major portion of what we do moving forward. We need to be able to figure out where we're going to head.
Let me end on a positive note. So just recently I delivered some turkeys to the Watson School just last week, and I was fairly blown away by the level of improvement in that one facility itself, from the windows to the painting to the overall vibe of the building. And everybody was noticing it. The vibe in the building is just wonderful, and the improvements were intense. So we have that capability to keep our buildings up to snuff. I say let's do it. Thank you, I yield.
Second.
So didn't we have an update on equipment, like a survey done recently? Are we starting from scratch, or I thought we
No,
had
no, we
had
have, you know, so we
some.
have, so when, I won't mention the company's name, but when we did some of the work with the Easter money, the buildings that they were involved in, they did a full walkthrough. Prior to that, we had brought in a company to do just an HVAC MEP a quick look at, snapshot of what we have, and then come up with a spreadsheet that would allow us to work off of that. So it was a big ticket item. It was short-term money. It was probably 15 to 17 million, where about 18 to 19 million with the Easter money that we've done of that major list, but it only hit 3 schools. So moving forward, we now have to take a look at that list, which all of this, everything that we have, that we've done, these prior studies or audits, so to speak, for lack of a better term, those are all will be handed over to the company walking in the door,
Mhm.
so they're not trying to go back and do work that's already done. Because there's a lot of information within the documents that we had done in the previous.
So I think it's a good idea to do this, but my concern is that how did we get to the mess we were in recently?
Yeah.
And what are we doing about it? Like, I just don't want to move and say, let's just move forward and not address how did we get to this point.
I agree.
Because there's some things, as you just said, that we
Mhm.
could do better, things that we did
Absolutely.
wrong, things that we didn't pay for at the right time, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But I don't want it to just be, let's move forward. Let's figure out how did we sort of mess up a few things maybe.
Absolutely.
And then at that point, they can tell us, oh, this is what we don't do. Like, one that gets me all the time is a couple years ago, we shut the air conditioner off.
Yep.
Like, who the hell does that? You know, but that's clearly not something that we should do. You got to handle the, moisture in the buildings and all that. So I think we learned the hard way on that, but we should have learned, we shouldn't even have to learn the hard way. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. They're going to look at,
They're going to look at what,
whatever, piecing stuff together. Don't piece something
Exactly.
together. That's wasting money
Right.
to try to do this and do that. So I think and it says in here about being comprehensive.
Right.
So I totally get that. One part in here said about the maintenance, HVAC tech being on the committee or some kind of thing. It's on, I just circled it. It says that when they meet, they're gonna have an HVAC technician be the person on the, I don't know,
As part of this?
as part of the group.
So it'll
So
be.
we have like
it'll
an
be-
in-house person
We'll have
somewhere.
some in-house person that will be here working on this, someone that works for us.
So it says
An
school department
HVAC person.
representative, and
Yep.
it says parentheses, HVAC technician.
Yep.
But I think that should read you, or director, or
Or
something.
director.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
But we
when
can
I
fix
see
that.
HVAC technician in parentheses, I think that's calling for the HVAC technician.
No.
But that's more of a low.
It's gonna be
If you need
some, right.
you or a director, if you have one in place, or somebody.
Everything is gotta run through, so the one thing nice about,
The pages that aren't
It's
covered.
on like 5 or 4
the one thing nice about doing a project like this
section.
in a study way is that we're gonna be able to drive it, right? So we're gonna be able to drive it where we want it to go, and I believe that,
Yeah, this was on bullet number 2 under the project parameters.
Yep.
And then scope and status, it just struck me that putting the word HVAC technician might be limiting it to who, it should be like who the superintendent or yourself feels like wants to
yes,
be representative. And then we want to be able to, not point, but have somebody to say, you were there for all this stuff.
Right.
It's an
Oh, yeah.
HVAC technician, they're not the boss of anybody.
no,
How do we hold them accountable
Yep.
to? The other thing I think I know the answer to this, but the policy on repairs and who pays. So this is gonna be a hell of a bill at the end of the day. They're gonna provide us a thing and it's gonna say we owe, if we wanna do all this work, it's gonna cost us
Right.
$50 million.
Right.
Who's gonna pay that bill? And what is the policy currently on how that goes? Because we don't wanna get into something to say, oh, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna think the city's paying, and then they're gonna think that we're paying. Like, I think it needs to be, maybe not part of this, but it needs to be,
conversation,
right now, it's
Oh, yeah.
anything over 150,000 the city pays.
right,
So as this member, that's what I'm voting on.
Right.
That the city's gonna pay. They can raise revenue, we can't.
Right.
So if we do this study that says we need $50 million in repairs in the buildings, and the policy is that they pay everything over 150,000,
Right.
we shouldn't be sitting here saying, how are we gonna come up with the money to do it? We can't bond, we can't raise revenue, all that stuff. So I think in collaboration with this, I think it needs to be acknowledged from the administration. We're asking for how much it's gonna cost, but this isn't a cost that the school department takes. And if that is the case, let's tell us now before we go plan this.
You're right.
Because if the school department's gonna take this fee, I'm gonna say no to this. Because we are gonna prove, look, you can't do it.
Right.
We don't have the means to actually do this. So I think at the full committee, I'd like some sort of, put it on a record from you guys to say, this is what we have to do to pay.
Sure.
Otherwise, I wanna vote no.
Okay.
Thank you, I yield.
Mr.
Yeah, to follow up on that, are there any Department of Energy grants towards projects like HVAC projects or anything like
So there's a
that?
few things, and I don't know the political side of where all of it's gonna go, but there are new initiatives that are coming out right now. Most of them are to deal with energy, and some of them are funded by national dollars, and some of them are state dollars. One of them is a green roof initiative. So if a roof is an acceptable conduit, excuse me. If a roof is an acceptable conduit for a solar system, and we're willing to put the solar system on, they'll pay for the roof. And that's running through MSBA. So MSBA is gonna be the conduit in order to get the money, because they have the ability to, with the engineering side of it, to do all of that, and then come down, check and see whether or not the school is legitimate for that particular piece.
Then we can go through MSBA?
Then we can go through MSBA for that funding, which is a no cost to the district, no cost to the
Yeah.
city. That's the kind of stuff that we'll be able to do. So that's roofs. We also, there was initiatives on heat pumps, some other energy saving pieces
Right.
that are major, you buy a unit where 1 ton, for instance, is a very small unit, it's $2,500 rebate. So those are the kind of things that are out there, and the companies that will bid on this work are gonna know all of that. Okay, it's part of what they do, because
Yes.
that'll be work that they'll have in the future. Now, this company who's doing
So
the
they'll be
study-
able to propose that to you?
Exactly. Once they take this on, they exclude themselves. So basically, the company who bids on this won't be able to bid the work. They'll be able to bid the design, and that's it. What they're gonna give us, so the company, whatever company this is,
They don't grant seek though, right? So
No.
They don't do any of that.
They don't do any of that stuff. This company is gonna hand us a document. What this will show us
Mhm.
is in the report, they will say you have an opportunity to apply for this grant and that grant and this grant,
Okay.
because of the nature of the work that we're doing. The rebate system, the last school,
So they are knowledgeable about grant.
because they do
funding.
this work
But,
also.
okay.
But if they choose to do this side of the work,
Mhm.
for whatever reason,
Yep.
then they'll be giving us
Mhm.
at least direction.
Okay.
That's the way it'll go.
Just in my own inquisitiveness, you said that there's going to be one of our own department people in HVAC, right? And will that HVAC, is that correct?
So it might not be the HVAC person, it will be someone who has some HVAC background.
And within our school
With-
department, right?
Who will answer to me. and to the
Is there
superintendent.
any chance that we can partner with Diamond on those kids in the HVAC program, on minor repairs or anything like that?
The problem is if it's work that's, I don't know how to say it without sounding like, union work has to be done by union employees.
Yeah,
So they're not eligible to do some of the work. Diamond's gonna do a lot. Diamond's helping us with this building here.
yeah.
They're helping us with the woodwork outside, because it's historic preservation. There's a learning piece with that. The repetition work that we're looking for on a project like this is not as educationally sound.
Yes.
It's just repetition. It's like changing light
I was
bulbs.
just thinking in terms of partnership,
Right.
that's
But
all.
they may-
in-
but they may,
in
you know, they-
strengthening our partnership,
We
that's all.
would never turn away, we have our construction craft laborers program that we try and get involved in a whole bunch of projects.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be,
So ultimately now, the last question I'm gonna ask is, for all of the movement that's gonna go on with this piece, you're gonna be at the wheel,
yes,
steering it.
if the superintendent chooses me, if I'm lucky enough, yes, I will be. I will keep my eye on it.
Good, thank you very much, I yield.
Saget, anything else? Okay, on to,
That needs a
Motion to
vote
approve.
oh,
to refer.
there you go.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Deb, call the roll.
Ms. Draggia?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes. On to 3.2, discussion vote to refer transportation invitation for bid for yellow bus services. Mr. Pacheco.
So this is an invitation for bid for the items listed on the letter. It's typical transportation, McKinney-Vento transportation, late buses, and athletic and extracurricular activities. This contract hasn't changed much over the years. The routes are getting bigger. The amount of buses that we use is much larger in quantity-wise, and many more buses than we used to have. A lot more riders, so to speak. But this is all-inclusive of almost everything except for special education. So route buses, this would entail route buses. The McKinney-Vento is the only specialized piece of this transportation, and then the late buses and athletic.
Mm-hmm.
And normally, and this will go out, but there may be more than one winner, right? So someone could bid just on McKinney-Vento rides, someone could bid just on the athletic, or someone could take the whole thing if they wanted to bid on each and every item.
Anything? Deb, second.
So I know the special ed was already done because of the electric bus issue, right?
Yes.
That's when we already proved that.
Right.
So with this new package, what is different than the prior package? So is this a 5-year contract?
So this
Pending?
is a 3-year contract with 2 years extension. So
But
we
what
didn't
was
go
the
with
one
straight,
that's
it was
running out?
straight 5. What we're hearing is that nobody wants to lock into a 5-year contract because of the volatile market and how the escalators are starting to work into all of this. There's slowly but surely, there's some large bus companies, not necessarily in our area, but in other parts of the state that are scooping up smaller companies. And they just want to test the water. So these nobody wants to lock into a 5-year term for a couple of reasons. They can't put in enough of an increase. And they're very concerned about the labor market. And having
This
to
is
be
the
able to
end
get
of the
drivers.
5 years.
So we have 1 more year left in the current contract. So the next school year is
Year
covered,
5.
right? And then we will be, I'm sorry. Yeah, this contract will go into effect in September.
So the other one is ending the 5 years.
It's ending,
We
yes.
did this 5 years ago.
This was 5 years ago.
And there's
right.
no 1 year because 5 is the max. So you
Right.
can't do like 1 and 1 like the other.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll do a 3. We'll go to, if the school committee wants to do this IFB as it is, we'll do a 3-year contract with the 2 1-year extensions. We'll still go to city council on the following day, so we would try and put this on the agenda, or the following month, it wouldn't matter which, to get them to approve a 5-year, because technically it's a 5-year contract, even though it's a 3 and 1 and 1. We wouldn't want to have to go back again.
And what changes were done to the package? Anything? Are we looking
So
at
there's
doing
some
anything the
small
same?
changes. There's obviously a small increase in price. What is in here is the option for electric buses. So if the electric bus phase 3, which is where this would come into play, if that comes into play, then they have to work with us to negotiate the use of those electric buses, and how many. We wouldn't know how many we're getting yet. The district currently, along with the city, we have 10 buses, of which they will be in operation sometime this winter. The actual terminal is ready. We just had it commissioned last week. And the next 10 buses is also the same company. The next round of the 44 passenger buses. So those are going to be going to the same contractor, which is the Whaling City. The difference is they were the owner of the buses the second time. The city's the owner of the buses the first time. The only thing that changed in there is The grant opportunity was for us to also do the next charging station in that particular site. The third round of this funding, if it stays in place, again, depending on whether or not the program stays alive for one more cycle, we would be looking for typical transportation out of that group. So we wouldn't be looking for the smaller buses, we would be looking for a typical yellow. And with that one, whoever the winning bidder is of this, they would have to be willing to accept the terminal at their location or at our location if they don't have the ability to have a charging station where they're on, depending on the power company.
So not much has changed. As far as this wouldn't
No.
reflect routes and all that to save money, that's on us.
So some of
have
the
the
routes,
flexibility.
yeah, some of the routes have been, so Deb has done a fantastic job with tightening things up on the routes. We are down on approving hardships. We are up on hardships. But we're looking for a little more criteria on the approval of the hardships. We're trying to work with the vendors, with all of our vendors, to figure out how we can maximize routes and time. So we've run out of time, we don't run out of seats in the district.
Yeah.
That's been our problem of the last 2 years, 2.5 years. We attribute some of that to construction, but not all of it. Deb Cavallo is the director of transportation, and what she's been doing is working with Laurie Overchain, assistant superintendent, special education, to come up with a system that, according to the rules, door-to-door is not door-to-door, not physically stopping in front of one house. Door-to-door, the total definition from the Department of Ed is getting it to within one side street. So we're hoping to capitalize on that one piece, saying that if this student at 190 North Main Street and this student at 210 North Main Street can meet, then that's one stop instead of two, which saves us 3 to 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes means we got another stop we can make. So we put maybe 2 more kids on that bus. And the idea would be to continue that process. So that's where we are trying to make headway with some of our special transportation, but also even our regular routes. As we met today, we have some buses with 77 passengers on it, 72, the capacity is 77. So we're maximizing the typical buses. What we can't maximize is our other routes, our door-to-door stuff, because we're running out of time to keep it within the hour of
But that's only the
transportation.
Whaling City.
That's the Whaling City piece, but it's also a problem we have in the city with construction and everything else. That's what's really given us a tough time the last couple of years. There's been a lot of road construction, which means a lot of detours, and then, you know, with the larger buses, our issue is narrow streets, like it always has been. So it's transportation in Fall River is not an easy thing, and we're getting into the season where it becomes more difficult.
And the city pays the transportation.
Yes.
And has there been any discussion of them balking at that again?
We haven't heard anything as of yet, but I don't know if we've cashed in any of our tickets yet, so.
But I just think it's another thing to be clear about, that we are gonna approve this, but it's very clear that the city pays it.
Yes.
We don't pay it. The state doesn't give us money to pay for it. The city pays it. So when we're approving this, it's like, yeah, we're approving some language, and obviously we wanna try to maximize and save the city money, but this is the city's money, not our money. So we're taking a vote, but they're the ones doing the payment. And I just think that needs to be very clear to everybody when we go to the full committee.
Sure.
About what it is. The only other thing I would say is the bus, these regular buses, so when we do like charter school or anything, do you or the superintendent acknowledge when, so we gotta move our start times to make it work for us.
Right.
Do we have authority to tell them to move the start times to make it work so that we can tier their buses as well? Or are they now we're paying plus we're locking them? Do we have the ability to tell anybody else that we're doing funding for, which is probably only Argosy, right?
It's only August, yes.
If we said, in order to save the city money, Argosy's start time needs to move. If it was the regular school, superintendent comes to us, we say yes.
I'll have to get back to you, because I think we do tier we may tier with them already.
But what I'm saying is
Oh, I know what
to
you're saying.
maximize.
It's
What
so
if
we
it's
could-
more? So like,
Right.
if you could, if fitting that number of students into our stuff makes it more sense. If they don't have to budge their times, and then we're just locked in, that's just something for,
Yeah, I'll talk
like
to
three
Mr.
tiers. I think some
Val.
would
I
do
agree.
3 tiers.
Yeah.
But we can't do a 3-tier if they're in the middle of the tier and
Yeah.
saying we're not moving our
So
time.
we do a 3-tier with 3 schools. It's a 2-tier because we can't do 3.
Right.
But we do two, and what we do is this school has 7 buses, the next school has 3, the other one has 4. So that's our 3-tier.
Mhm.
Technically, it's 3 schools, but only 2 sets of, so we could do
Buses, yeah.
what you just said, similar, if we can arrange times.
Yeah. And this might affect it, because the Tremblay one is different. Is the Tremblay road different than this one?
Yes, a lot different.
So, what I would like to see is when, in the bid somewhere, if a company is bidding on all of the work for the regular buses, and they have access to vans, they should get first priority to get the van work. If we're going outside of, like if Tremblay can't do it, so now we go out to 3 different companies, we should have something in here to say, if you win the bid for the other piece, you automatically are the first call for the other
So we,
stuff.
unofficially, it's not in there, but unofficially, that is exactly what Ms. Cavallo does. She calls the other companies who already have contracts with us and try and get them. The issue is always the manpower, it's not anything other than,
Yeah, I'm just
you know,
saying,
but it
to
is-
sort
I
of
hear
not
what
make
you're
it
saying.
unofficial,
right.
I would think it's official, if
Okay.
we put it as part of the bid, to say you're gonna also get first dibs on any extra van work or something like that, just to make sure that it's happening.
Okay.
Thank you, I yield.
Okay, can I get a vote?
Motion to approve, or forward? or
Second,
Yeah. Deb?
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes. On to three discussion vote to refer a renewal request from Tremblay's Van Transportation.
So Tremblay provides all of our 7D transportation
Mm-hmm.
in and out of district. And the track record from Tremblay is very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a relationship. I don't want to quote it because I haven't been here long enough to,
Yep.
but I'm pretty sure that they've probably been with the district for at least 20 years, if not longer. We're doing some kind of work for us. So what we did with Tremblay's is we sat down with them and talked out what things we could and couldn't do with them, what we liked and didn't like in the contract, and also for the first time acknowledge that some of the things that change within the contract is not in our control. And we didn't mention this a lot in the other pieces, in the other contracts. So one of the things is the changes with 7D transportation. That's been a particular piece of the contract, especially with a company like Tremblay's, who only does that kind of 7D transportation for us, that when those changes happen, they usually, take a hit on it if it's a cost piece. So we acknowledged that and said that we would negotiate if there are any changes that are financially burdening that they could not foresee at the time a contract was done. There also, the monitors that work for Tremblay's are probably some of our more veteran monitors. And with, as I said, with these companies scooping up all the smaller companies, what they're doing is they're just outpricing people out of the market, outpaying them, so to speak, kind of,
Yep.
with contracts.
Yep.
So we're looking at taking their contract. It's prevailing wage, so everyone, bus drivers and all of the people make prevailing wage. The prevailing wage for the monitors is not quite covering the cost, so there is an increase here for monitors. And they've always been 4-hour minimums, but it was never written. So when we sat down with Mr. Tetrol, one of the things that he had asked was if we could put that into the agreement. And the added van mileage cost is pretty much holding. It's been right around this number for a while. It was, I think, $2.85, if I'm not mistaken. So this would be any kind of extra routing that they would do, and they could prove that extra routing to us via the methods they currently do. And then again, this would be a 3-year with a 2-year, 2 1-year extensions.
Year at a time, not two. Mr. Corey?
Basic question, Kenny, the monitors, 4 hours, how does that work? They work in the morning to bring the kids to school, then are they off, and then they come back to work in the afternoon?
Most,
Split
and
shift,
even
yeah.
drivers are like that.
So they
Unless
work,
they have works to do.
they work in different shifts, but it's all considered in a
Right.
day's work.
Right.
It's
So
the
they may
same,
do stuff in
it's
the
the
middle.
same group of workers, the same drivers, the same monitors, morning and afternoon.
Except if there's a, there's a sick, a sick
Mhm.
call or something like that, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
important on the out-of-district
That's the
routes.
basic structure of the setup.
Exactly, yes.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Agia?
The amounts in here, that's the prevailing wage, or is that the amount that the?
This is the amount that they're asking. The prevailing wages,
This isn't the amount that
They don't
the
receive.
company has to make some of this.
no, yeah, that's not the,
That's not the
pay
actual
rate.
rate.
No, no, no.
Rate.
No.
It's-
No.
Yeah. And this is legal based on, because of special education doesn't have to
Yes,
go out.
exactly, yes.
Motion approved.
Mr.
I
Corey?
have a question first. So based on their wage, I mean, their wages are pretty good. So in a 4-hour day, is their morning shift considered part of their 4-hour shift, like 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon? Is that how
So
that breaks
it
down?
basically is, I'm not sure that they're only getting 4 hours. What I think is the 4 hours
We
is
have to have a minimum.
For instance, if we had an out of district up the Cape and it was an hour there, or if it was 45 minutes there or 40 minutes there, they're going to get a 4-hour minimum for the day. The driver is also going to do the vehicle check.
Mhm.
The monitor's there. They go pick up the child and maybe a slight delay at the home for whatever reason, and then wherever they're going to drop it off, they could hit traffic, stuff like that. So it's all figured in. The minimum would be 4 hours.
As far as the whole transportation umbrella is concerned, and I know I'm grateful that the city picks up the bill for the school department on this. Well, it was the city that devised the demographic map of all the new schools, and when you look at the demographic travel areas in our city, it's sort of like very angular. You got points north, you got points south, then you got points east, not a whole lot of points west. And it's like there are certain outlying districts within the region that make it difficult, for kids to walk to a bus stop. And so I could see where transportation costs would be increased over time. But could you just pull a number out of your hat about COLA increases per year? Does it raise 2% per year overall transportation costs?
COLA raises has been in 5s and 7s in the last couple of years.
5 to 7%
Right.
each year, right?
It's
I
been
mean,
that way.
that's considerable,
It is.
given
That
given
won't
the
last.
size of the transportation budget.
Right.
Wow.
Wow.
Mr. Agia?
So the other thing I want to ask on transportation is, so the regular ed one that we're voting on, we were told last year that we were going to redistrict and redraw all the lines and the thing. And I think that needs to happen. I thought it needed to happen last year. But the cost is tremendous for when schools are not drawn, the lines aren't drawn right, we got kids coming all over the place. Now we're transporting kids all over the place. It's a mess. And then we also have situations where people are doing favors to give transportation. So it's not all, there's all kinds of rationale for why people are getting transportation. I think we need to say enough's enough, time out. Redistrict the whole school system, know exactly where they're going, and we can't do favors for people because somebody called. It has to be the same way. You're eligible for it or you're not eligible for it. And that's a tough line. People might not like it, but we can't afford to keep doing what we're doing. And if you did an analysis, you're going to show us that it's crazy. There's kids coming and going. We fill up one school because of policies and kids are coming. Now that school's not done. Kids are moving into that district. Where did that kid have to go? That kid has to go somewhere else. Guess what? We pay transportation. We'll figure out a way to transport. It is an absolute nightmare. as far as for what Ms. Valencourt has to deal with. So we have to take a stand and say, no, we're not gonna do it, we're gonna redistrict, we're gonna make some tough decisions, but we gotta reset the whole place. And this number will, even if it just stays the same, it's a victory, because like you're saying,
Oh,
it's 5%. We can't keep holding it the same number every year and keep doing all these things. It's crazy. So the number's been around the same for the last several years, hasn't gone up tremendous in my mind, if at all. But we're like, you know, we're up against it. So now's the time. Let's fix it once and for all. Thanks. I yield.
Mr. Corey.
Yeah, I agree. I want to follow up on that. I know a few years ago there was a consultant's study of our bus routes and stuff. That gentleman, then I left the school board and I came back. I lost track of all of that. Did anything come of his study?
So it's, I mean, what came out of it is the fact that we have the system that operates. So we have the Traversa system that allows Ms. Valencourt to, Ms. Cavallo, Ms. Cavallo to do the routes. So
Yes.
we double check. So what we normally would do is we would send our names and addresses. The bus company would take that, build a route, and then we would take it back, make sure that everything was where we needed it to be, and then we would know a capacity. So every route is timed, so we know exactly how much time we have left. And then what Ms. Cavallo would do is, if we get a request, a hardship, or we get a new student moving into the district, or changing locations within the city, she takes those items, puts it into the system that we have,
Yeah.
and does that. The issue is that our we have a lot of students on transportation. I mean, half of our students are transported by us, the other half are by parents. But that's a lot of students.
Yeah, it is. It's 5,000-6,000 kids.
And it's a major.
It's very complex.
And we have more students riding overall, including.
Oh, please, so you would say that Ms. Cavallo has a handle on
Absolutely.
on the efficiency of the demographic map itself for transportation.
And there's been a lot of good changes.
Yeah.
That she's made that's made us a little more efficient. But it also is a work in progress. There's a lot to do.
Yeah, and it's a changing work because,
Yes.
right, year to year, it's got to be some variables depending on what kids are still in school and what kids are just coming up and where they live.
Yes.
So it's a changing map all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion,
Motion
please?
approved.
Second?
Deb, please.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes. Mr. Pacheco, we're moving on to 3-4, Pace Building.
Yes. So a couple of things on the Pace Building. So we are, not through anyone's fault, but we are about a month behind on the completion of the roof at the building. Some of it has been some unforeseen stuff. Some of it has been a material issue, like maybe not having everything at the building on time. It hasn't been weather, so we've been very fortunate for this whole project that the weather has been really, I'm not going to say pleasant, but for roofers this is perfect weather for them to work, and that has helped us. We also, it's a complicated roof because we have to pull the rooftop units off. We had 18 skylights in that building, and add on another 6 rooftop units that have to be, the
It's a lot of
curtains
work.
covered.
Flashing,
lift the
all
roof,
that kind of
Take the
stuff.
room, you
Lot
have
of
to
work.
take the room off, put the unit back down. We got rid of all of the skylight pieces, which are very expensive to maintain, but also they were gonna be very expensive to replace. So we covered over those areas. We've done some nice work on the inside of the building to make those areas look acceptable. It's also quieted down the building a little bit because that was an echo chamber where those skylights were. So we've done that work on the inside of the building. That was all part of the project. So the school department hasn't had any expenses on any of that work. There was some HVAC work to disconnect the units, to reconnect the units, to The old roof was, I'm gonna use the term litter, but it was littered with piping everywhere, because the rooftop units were changed from the old ones to the new ones, and it was at the time, it was the most economical way to do it. So what we've done is, we started to do it about 3 or 4 years ago, bringing all of those pipes inside the building, where they're protected, they'll last longer, but also they're better insulated, so more heat efficient. And now as part of this project, we were able to bring more of that work inside the building, so we have very little sitting on top of the roof now. So that piece has been done. The last rooftop unit is going to be lifted on Monday and put back on Tuesday of next week. And that'll take care of all of the HVAC stuff on the roof. So there'll be some minor work left to do. I'm hopeful that the work that's going on the roof will be done by the end of Christmas break. And then in January, they'll be just doing some fine tuning around the edges and stuff. So that piece is the roof side of it. The fire suppression system, I'm not quite sure when that bid is being opened. I think it's within the next couple of weeks, but I'm not positive. But the fire suppression bid is the next big piece of that project. And it will allow everything in that building to move forward. With that being said, our portion of the work at the Pace was put to a halt by me, because I had to shuffle money around to make the other projects work. So at the playground project, we did have some stuff, a lot of carpet work, a lot of tile work, some
And
HVAC
those were more
improvements.
expensive than we thought,
Yes.
correct? Those came in a
They-
greater cost.
So the playgrounds came in much higher, not due to the playground price, because that was locked in. The playground prices were bid out quite a while ago. It was the site work at each one of the sites. The site's a very difficult site. So 2501, the slope on that property is significant. So if you haven't been down to that particular building, if you take a look at that, you'll see that it's a retaining wall. It's a short wall, almost flush on one side, and it's 4 or 5 blocks high on the opposite side. So that was a major undertaking, very expensive proposition to make that playground level and safe. Tansy, we moved the playground from the back to the front for a couple of reasons. The playground, by design, is bigger for 2 reasons. One, for more use. There's much more activities on that new playground at Tansy, but also the concern by putting it in the back of the building, would take away most of the yard, the play yard in the back.
Sure.
So for recess and for other things that they're not out in that play area, they were gonna lose too much space in the back. So we moved it to the front. That created a situation where we had to make an area that was suitable for the play area. So it meant digging up, putting curbing, street curbing around it, so that we could pour the rubber surface up against it and install that playground. So unanticipated, because our intent was to put it in the back originally. The third playground that we did was Fonseca. Fonseca is a totally enclosed courtyard. So we literally had to remove windows so that we could drive the equipment
Yeah,
through the building,
I know
get to
exactly
the
what you
area.
mean there, yeah.
We had to, the concrete was in rough shape. We were removing some of it, but some of the concrete was in really bad shape. Not on the surface, but when we broke up the concrete on the other side, it was spider cracks all over it. It was really damaged. So we decided to remove all of that concrete. So we, again, trucking all of that material in and out, and then bringing the new material in, and then, again, putting the playground in pieces, pouring the surface, another $25,000, $35,000, $40,000 of work by 2 or 3 different companies. The glass work had to be done. on 2 sides of that building, and then some repair work, and we do have little touch-ups on tile that still have to be done. The 4th playground that we've installed is at the Westall. Again, Westall is much worse than 2501 on the slope. So we have one playground which is up higher that now is age appropriate for the school. We built a 2nd playground larger than the first one that has swings and other things on it, climbing play areas, and that one also had to be built up with, so on one side we have nothing, on the other side we have 6 layer high, which is how bad that is. And then every one of these playgrounds, with the exception of Fonseca, we had to put fencing around for protection, both
Yeah.
fall protection mostly on both of them. The playground also at the, one last thing, the playground at 2501, we had to put netting on, because when the kids were out there with a ball, if they let the ball roll, we'd probably end up at Bay Village down Summit
Yeah.
Street. So what we needed to do was make sure that that play area was gonna be something that they could be in and feel safe, and the instructors and who, phys ed teachers would not necessarily be concerned about them throwing a ball around or something like that.
My question, how are the rest of the playgrounds? Are we doing preventative? What are those looking like?
So some of them, we've already done some repairs, some small repairs. We're developing a list of play areas with which ones from obviously
Yeah.
from bad to in good shape. We do have quite a few of them that with minor repair we can do. The biggest issue with all of our play areas is the surface. So the surface on the play areas is really bad. This is 3rd generation in the new ones. So this was when this rubber surface just came about. So there's not a lot of cushion, so to speak. The new ones, the process is much different. The
Yep.
preparation under the ground is much different. So we will eventually have to do all the playgrounds. Some of the equipment in some schools, like Laterno's little top area, is in great shape. The little area,
Mhm.
the big area not so much, but the little area, the ground surface needs to be redone. So we're gonna prioritize that.
That was
and
my
then we'll-
follow, yeah.
And
We're
then
gonna
we'll present
prioritize
that as
need.
one piece,
Okay.
right? So when we do our capital
We're not all
improvement
doing
plan.
them all at once and getting
Exactly,
crushed.
exactly.
Okay.
So with that being said, the hold on pace is strictly a financial hold.
Yeah.
But there's a small piece of it that's a time hold and not much of it. We were expecting to get into the building to start the build out of the 14 classrooms
Mhm.
probably by February. Looks like that's gonna probably get pushed into March, depending on when the fire suppression contract gets approved and they get started. Once that happens, the areas that we need to work in to do the pace work will be available for us to do that work. Once we put the petitions up, we just added a lot of work for everyone else to try and lay all of that piping for the fire suppression system up in the ceiling. So my ask here is that we have a conversation, or allow us to have a conversation with St. Anthony of the Desert Parish and Conley to see if we can rent those 2 spots for 1 more year. I asked the question to both entities, and one was a yes and the other one was, we'll get back to you, and we now know that that is a yes. We haven't negotiated numbers, but that is,
So you got 2 yeses for both.
so we've got 2 yeses, that they would sit down and negotiate an additional year. By doing that, obviously, it gives us time that we don't have currently. So they would be,
Are you gonna need a whole year, or can you move out mid-year?
I think back to the work at Green and Spencer Borden when they moved in at a half year. It was a nightmare. It's very disruptive to
Yeah, it
everyone.
is.
And
Yeah.
you've got such a short amount of time to have everything ready. So I would ask that we go for the full contract, and
Okay.
then we would at that point, we would play it by ear. Our same intent is to attack that building as quickly as we can, so we won't stop. Financially, I don't know where we'll be. I think that some of it is hinging on other things going on in the district financially, which the committee's aware of, so depending on what we have available, we'll see where we go. But this, I want to preface this by saying that the 750, the over on the playgrounds, that's all me. That's not, and I've let the superintendent know that I should have come to the district first and then brought it to the school committee so that we could fix. I don't know how we would fix it. And the only thing I want to say about construction is I've been in business for most of my adult life, and change order is invented in the construction business because there's so many issues that can come up.
Time sensitive too.
And this
right?
was, this was four playgrounds that were not your typical playground. The Green School, as typical as that was, still had its own issues that we did the year before. That one had its own little uniqueness, but it did not have these walls and topography changes in the property that made it almost impossible to do it for anything less. So that piece is on me.
Mr. Corey.
Yeah, so no, I get it. You know, these are, we took on 2501 and we took on Westall as of last year, you know, to fulfill our requirements for early childhood. And this is what comes with the territory. So you got a good handle on it, Ken. And furthermore, I trust you. And you needed to put a stop to the pace building. As far as the pace building is concerned, I got a question for you, Madam Superintendent. When it comes to the ancillary space in the pace building, what are the plans for the extra space in there, the ancillary spaces? Any ideas?
In
the pace building, like once it opens, are there going to be extra offices maybe placed there? I don't know if you guys have discussed any of that yet.
We haven't discussed any plans beyond what had been planned for pre-K there.
How much extra space is that?
So depending on the layout of the 14 classrooms is going to take up I keep calling it the airplane room because that's how I remember it, but the room that had the airplane in it, the next environmental science room, the two carpentry areas at the end. That whole area will be classrooms, the 14 classrooms. There'll also be classrooms up in the next space, which was the engineering space on Sue Black's area there,
Yep.
right? So that area, and then the very next one would be an indoor recess area for the little ones when the weather is bad.
Sure.
Right there. So in that particular wing, there would be no extra space. I don't know what is planned for the opposite side of the building, the music wing.
Okay.
My guess is that at some point, the conversation has been since the bridge came down that it would be nice to have that as part of the Performing Arts Center. And hopefully that's a city project. Whether we maintain the building or not is a conversation for another time, but I believe that is the only place that'll be some
Is
extra
that
space.
auditorium shut down right now and not
The auditorium is
used?
shut down because of roof leaks. The National Guard is using it.
Yeah.
They do practice on the stage, and they do have all of the other area to
In that
themselves.
music wing.
In the
And
music
that's
wing.
the only space that's left. is
Exactly.
The auditorium
Right.
and the music wing.
The
Exactly.
music wing only.
Right.
That's what they're using.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. In your overall view of the district in our facilities, we had that glaring mold issue this past summer. Which buildings are in low-lying, like high water table areas, and is that a factor in the mold?
I think there's a whole bunch of things that are factors in the mold, the older the building. So there's a point where the HVAC system takes control over the building. Our real older buildings like Watson and Westall didn't have those issues because the building was breathing. The building,
Yeah.
There was enough air infiltration that stopped that. They also are 2 buildings that are located where there is no water issues, right? But we do have buildings, Henry Lord, for instance, is one.
That's a wetland.
Laterno was until they built up a lot of the backland, and now it's not.
So the drainage, I would think that Laterno suffers a little bit from all of the construction that's going on around it.
It did, but it seems to have leveled off, because when we do some of that groundwater testing, we didn't see a lot there, and I went back and looked at some of the documents during construction, and it wasn't an issue. It wasn't an issue there. We didn't hit a lot of groundwater. Green was no issues, not a lot of groundwater, but anytime you have a building that's subsurface, so you green is half in,
Doran.
half out. Doran is a perfect
Low line, that
example.
took a major hit in the floods of 2010, wiped out the gym.
Right. So overall, most of the buildings, the HVAC system is the key to all of this, and removing humidity in large quantities is the way to do it. Until you have a system that's designed to do that work, a regular system isn't. And none of those schools, with the exception of Morton and Durfee, were designed with dehumidification in the process.
So now with the new plan that we're going to approve in place,
Right.
you're gonna be able to stay proactive with all of the HVAC systems district-wide.
As long as we can secure financing, we can do everything.
Okay.
Mr. Agia?
So, the reason why this is on the agenda, so I chair the early childhood, so I had asked that this be on there because of the pay center. Go back to February, January of last year, you can go back and look at the records. It's very clear to me what happened last year. It was too late, but we gotta deal with pre-K. We gotta deal with the lines drawn, all that stuff. I have a pretty good memory of exactly what happened. And if I don't, I'll go watch the video again. I was under the belief, right from the get-go, that after this year, we talked about controversy to Tansy School, what are we gonna do? We fell on this, and we were told by prior superintendent, but you were assistant, and by yourself, Mr. Pacheco, we were gonna do the pay center. So I'm of the belief that we're still doing the pay center. We were told that the roof was gonna get done. We were told the fire suppression was gonna get done. Everybody knew it needed to get done in time for us to move forward with our stuff. So I'm operating under that belief. And I wanted to schedule a meeting because nobody was talking about the pay center. So the reason why this is even here is because I had asked the superintendent to put it on. She asked to put it on this agenda just to speak about it because we already had the meeting. It's also on the agenda for next week for the early child, because that's more how we're going to deal with pre-K across the whole. So I think it's probably more appropriate for that discussion than how we're going to do pre-K. Like the 2 leases and all that stuff isn't necessarily for the facilities piece, but we're going to have that discussion one way or another next week. But I'm not happy about how this whole thing went down. I am trying to figure out, and I asked you for a bunch of stuff, I got nothing. Got nothing.
Well, because I have to request things as well.
I understand,
And
but
so,
so I asked you for some stuff and I got received 0 is what I'm saying today.
okay,
So I've asked for over a year, probably, for the documents relative to the roof. Check the records. Anybody wants to challenge it, check the records. I asked in public meetings, I asked the mayor, where is it, how much is it gonna cost, when were the bids happening, when is it gonna stop, when is it gonna end, how much is it gonna cost, where's the accounts coming from? And I've received 0 answers from anybody on this team or the mayor and the city side. So I don't know what the heck happened with how this delay happened or where the money was coming from. Not only on the city side, that's just a curiosity more than anything because they're paying it.
Right.
But our side, how do we not budget? Like, where was this money coming from? Which is one of the things I asked you for. Like, so when we started back whenever, we were told we had the money for base, we had the money for this, we had the money for this, we had the money for the playgrounds. So we voted on these things, and then we get no answer from anybody. So you can only assume that everything's on track. So now, because I asked to have the meeting, now all of a sudden this is here. Oh, we don't have the money for the. It really is something that is not sitting well with me, and I think it's a system issue. Like, where was the money budgeted? Because I think it feels to me like we were promised things with money in like a 3-card Monte or some. We don't know exactly where the money's coming from. Where I was of the belief, if we said we had 3.9 million, which is what's here, there's an account that said Pay Center 3.9. Somebody had to be watching that account to say we got 3.9 for the Pay Center this year. It's simple, it sounds simple, but it shouldn't, this didn't happen. How did that 3.9 turn to whatever, now we got 3.2 because we had to take 700 of it. That's the problem that I'm having with how the hell are we here? And now we're sort of like, oh, we don't have a choice. And it's just frustrating, and I'm gonna go more into it. Hopefully I'll get the information I asked for, and then figure it out next, so now we say, okay, we're gonna go with lease. Sounds good, but it's $600,000 approximately that we're gonna pay for a lease that's not coming out of the 4.5 budgeted for the pace. So that's $600,000, we're not getting anything out of it, other than we're spending another $600,000. And I'm saying 300 for each
Right.
of them, roughly.
Right.
That 600,000 is 1/5 of the,
Mhm.
of the whole picture. At some point, we're gonna run out of money. And I just don't feel like we're getting enough solid, we just keep being told, yes, we have the money, and nobody checks it. And if we ask to check it, we get eyes rolled, we get all this other, don't ask questions, things like that. And I'm not talking about anybody here
I was
specifically.
gonna say, I have.
But what I'm just saying is, in general, we get to be like, oh, don't ask the questions, don't get specific on why, like that type of stuff. Well, the reason why you ask specific questions like that is for situations like this. But this isn't the first time this has happened in this district over the last several years. So my frustration is because I keep getting burned by the same thing. I can believe somebody, I can say, oh yeah, okay, we got the money, then all of a sudden now we don't have the money. And it seems like we keep going back to the same thing. And it's like, if you say we have the money, show us the account, put the money in the account. We do a lot of this stuff, moving stuff around. And the committee is sitting here saying, who do we believe at some? And some people just want to believe whatever anybody says. But we have been proven now, and this is another example, we need to tighten up our fiscal controls, which I've been saying for how long, because this should not have been allowed to happen. The playgrounds are great. I'm all for the playgrounds. I would have loved to have been able to determine, well, maybe we don't have the money for, if we were going to sacrifice the pace situation, maybe we only did 3 playgrounds, but keep the pace on track. I never got a chance to vote on that because we're just told after the fact. So, I'm frustrated with it. I think the city, I don't know how this suppression is not bid yet. I don't know enough. I asked for all the records. I asked for emails. I asked for, how the hell is this suppression not bid and the job's getting done? I don't understand.
Well, the job is not, so they haven't started any of the fire suppression. as of
No,
yet.
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. No.
How does it not
I
start?
don't know what
We're talking,
level it's at.
we're probably talking March? Probably March, when we made the thing about the Tansy and we had all this
Yes.
controversy, right? At the time, the city was like, no, we know it has to get done. We know that this has to get done in order for this to go by the pace. So the reason why we didn't do the Tansy or any other of those other moves was because we were told by this administration, or the prior administration, that we were going to be ready to go. And we know, in order to do that, we have to get the fire done on time, the building done on time. I even said it. I don't think we're going to get it done. We better be careful. Now look at this. We don't even have the fire suppression bid done. And it's almost the turn of the year. I don't know how anybody can look at this and just say that this was a good situation, because it was a mess. And I'm not happy about it. We'll talk more about it when I get the info. And the reason why I asked for the info is only because somebody's got to try to figure out how did we get to this place. And I think at some point I asked for the budget stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes the CFO needs to be here too
Mm-hmm.
and say, how are we allowing this stuff to go on? Because we can't just sit here and say, yes, we allowed an account to go $700,000 in the hole. And nobody notified the school committee. Just shouldn't happen. So at the next meeting, I'd appreciate the CFO or somebody from his office being there.
Mm-hmm.
I yield.
Any new business come before us tonight?
I got
No?
one. I got one.
Yes.
So yesterday I read the Health and Wellness Committee the agenda. I don't know if that was the agenda was a memo, notes, whatever was on the thing that came through. It indicated the Spencer Borden fire issue was, there was different information by somebody that put it out there, and I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know what it is. But if you could please look into that, try to figure out.
Because they sent notes from the meeting today, is that what you said?
No, I think it was on the agenda. So like when you get invited, it said the agenda.
Oh.
They actually had some comments from people that were concerned about at Spencer Borden. I think teachers probably could have wrote some complaints.
I see,
In those complaints, the one about the fire
okay.
is different than the information we were given. And I'm not passing judgment on
Okay.
either way, but it was opposite of what we had. So you could please look at that and say, here's what the story is, here's what the cameras show, here's what whatever. It just what their information that they presented was different. They also threw a lot of other stuff that I think the full committee should get about mold being in certain rooms and, just kind of look through their notes and say, I think you're gonna see that we should get some correspondence on truth or mistruth or half-truth on any of that stuff. Are you?
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So wait,
So moved.
second.
Yep.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.